Okay, welcome to the PairRec San Fran Tourism channel. Our goal is to showcase the top attractions in the San Francisco Bay Area and also where to find them. Now today's focus will be phase 2 of a series of adventures on Market Street in San Francisco. Now in phase 1, we emphasize your dining options, your lodging options, your parking options, your shopping options. We also emphasize the alleyways in which there are unique restaurants that are hidden, that in many cases are only where the locals dine. We also talked about the significance of Market Street and how it divides the city right in half, north of Market and south of Market. We talked about the numbered block and how they're used throughout the city to identify a merchant's location. And we talked about the significance of that, and that it'll make it easier for you to find a specific establishment, whether it be a business or an attraction, by your awareness of how the streets are aligned and the significance of the numbered block. And it will also showcase, the skylines, the tall buildings, and the beautiful architectural structure of the skylines on Market Street as well. We began the journey on the cross street of Stewart Street at Market, going westbound up to 4th Street. Now today we're going to continue our journey from 4th Street at Market Street, and we're going to be going westbound on Market Street. Oh, also one final thing. We also talked about how the streets begin on Market Street that are crossing Market, going north of Market, and also as you're going south of Market. So we're going to briefly showcase all the attractions, more of the attractions that are on Market Street, but also, like I said earlier, how to find them. And that being the case, let's get started. Now today's weather in San Francisco is 90 degrees Fahrenheit with 8-mile-an-hour winds and 33% humidity. Today's date is Friday, October the 2nd, 2020. Time is 2:18 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now this is the entrance to the Powell BART station. It's a public rapid transit system that literally takes you from San Francisco over to the East Bay, that is near the Oakland Airport, and also south of Market towards the San Francisco Airport. This station is located at the corner of 4th and Market Street, north of Market, and then if you're going south of Market, also just say 4th at Market Street. Now currently this particular entrance is closed, but normally it's usually open. It has an escalator and a stepwell leading down to the underground section of where the underground market, that is street, where you can actually catch the train. And then across the street you'll have another entrance to the track system, again, where you can actually board the train. Now, one of the things that's special about visiting Market Street is the numerous street vendors that you'll find that either selling either shirts or hats, or maybe even selling food. And they tend to be more located around 4th Street, 4th and Market Street. 4th and Market Street, 4th and 5th Street is kind of like you're going to be your busiest streets, because at 4th and Market, you've got north of Market, you're going to find a few blocks up is Union Square, and then you're going south of Market, you're going to find on 4th Street, you're going to find the several hotels, the Marriott Marquis and a few other major department stores. And I might add, north of Market, you're going to find 4th Street. And I'll show you in a minute how the streets are aligned, but I just want to briefly identify your many options for dining and shopping along Market Street. Now, here's the beginning of 4th and Market Street. The arrow indicates that it is going southbound, and that's one of the things I want to emphasize as well in terms of how the streets are aligned. You look at the arrow and look which direction it's going to, and that'll indicate the length of the block and in which direction the street is actually going. Now, in a minute, I'm going to show you north of Market how the Stockton Street begins going north of Market. Okay, now at Stockton Street and Market, Stockton is going to be crossing Market going northbound. And again, you see the arrow beginning at the number street, beginning at 000, and you see the arrow going northbound. This is what you're going to find. The streets are going to be different as you cross Market going northbound versus if you cross Market going southbound. Now, one of the things you need to be aware of when driving on Market Street is the significance of no left turns and in some cases no right turns. This is very, very important to keep you from getting into an accident. Like if you notice this sign right here on Market Street, it says no right turn on Market Street. And in fact, no right turns, period. I'm going to show you why in a minute. Now, as you can see, these cars are going southbound as they're heading towards Market Street. And so if you're going down Market Street and you turned right without paying attention to that no right turn sign, you're going to be turning right into oncoming traffic. You could possibly get into an accident. So this is why it's extremely important that you pay attention to the signage as you decide to make a left and right turn. Because in San Francisco, we have so many one-way streets that you can easily turn into oncoming traffic and get into an accident. I'll show you more of this as we move along Market Street. Now, in many cases, when you're walking on Market Street or any street in the city, you won't be able to identify what street you are on. Primarily, you're able to do this when you look up at the stop sign. At the stoplights is where you'll see the signage for the street, identifying that street. But in some cases, when you come to a corner, there's no street sign indicating what street you're on. So in that case, what you do is you come to the corner of the block and you look down on the sidewalk. And this is where you'll be able to identify the title of the street. Now in this case, this is Stockton Street. Now, one other thing you need to know about the streets that cross Market Street is that north of Market, you've got Stockton Street, which I indicated earlier, that crosses Market. But also you've got another street called Ellis Street that also crosses Market right at the intersection of Stockton and 4th Street. Now, Ellis and Stockton Street are north of Market, but Ellis Street crosses Market diagonally, whereas Stockton Street crosses Market vertically. I'll show you Ellis Street here in a minute. So here's Ellis Street, and as I said earlier, it crosses Market diagonally, and you're going to find this scenario virtually at every block, or many of the blocks that cross Market Street. You have one block that crosses Market Street south of Market, and then you're going to have two blocks that cross Market Street north of Market, one of which will be crossing it vertically and the other diagonally. And again, why is this important? So that you can become aware of how the streets are aligned and how to find a specific merchant when you're having difficulty trying to find it. So now let's continue our journey going westbound on Market at the 800 block of Market Street. Now here is the elevator for the Powell Street BART station, and The elevator is used primarily if you're handicapped or you have a bicycle or any items that you are not allowed to use the elevators to get down to where the Powell BART train station is, where you can board the station at. Now this elevator is located on the corner of, again, Market 4th and then Market Ellis, Market Stockton. Or you can say 800 Market Street. Now the Old Navy store is a chain retail department store featuring like family type of clothes, jeans, and fun accessories. And they're located at 801 Market Street. Now the other thing you need to be concerned with or know of in terms of the street alignment is that one side of every block in the city is going to be odd number, the other side is even number. So again, when you're having difficulty trying to find an establishment, either a tourist attraction or a store, you also want to be able to identify whether you're on the odd number street or the even number street. And I'll show you how that's easy to do in many cases, because a lot of merchants will have their street address emphasized right on the front of their store or, let's say, restaurant establishment. So, as you can see, this James Bond building is located at 833 Market Street. Now again, that's going back to the Old Navy store. It's located on the odd number side of the street, which means that all the businesses that are on this side of the street, if you're on this side of the street on Market Street, are going to be odd number, and of course the opposite side of the street is going to be even number. Again, making it easy for you to find an establishment. Now, the Westfield Shopping Mall is located at 835 Market Street. It's a center of major department centers, stores within inside the mall itself, as well as a numerous amount of shops. And so I'll show you another entrance as well as you come up Market Street here. So here's the entrance to the Westfield, the main entrance to the Westfield Shopping Mall. And what's special about it is that you've got literally 170 shops and restaurants, many of which are boutique. You also have a few large department stores, Bloomingdale's, and also there's a movie theater as well. So a lot of activities going on inside the Westfield Shopping Mall. Again, located at 865 Market Street. Now here's one of several Amtrak bus stops. If you're not familiar with Amtrak, that's pretty much a public train system, unlike the BART, where Amtrak goes pretty much all over out the country. But there's no train tracks here in San Francisco. So what they do is they'll have several bus stops here within the city, a lot of which are on Market Street and some are on Mission Street. And they will pick you up at any one of these stops and then take you over to the closest train station, where the train tracks are at, where you board the train. That's over in Emeryville. But this stop is right outside the Westfield Shopping Mall, 865 Market Street. Now, one of the steps the city has taken to keep the city clean is to embed or place these waste disposal garbage cans on the sidewalks. And this one was kind of nice in that it also includes a cigarette lighter. So instead of dumping your cigarette on the ground, you just dump it into that hole. See where that hole is in the middle of the waste disposal? That's where you would dump your cigarette lighter. And then of course on top of it is where you dispose of your trash. Now this garbage waste disposal is pretty much right outside the Westfield Shopping Mall at 865 Market Street. Now, one of the many things you can do besides walking and driving on Market Street is you can use one of these electric scooters and then use this as your form of transportation as you come up and down Market Street. These two, let's see, I think there's 3 of them here. Now, this particular station, electric bike station, is located at 871 Market Street. Now, our Tesla shop which is a part of the Westfield Shopping Mall, that has an entrance on Market Street. So you'll find that there are several businesses that have entrances to their establishment that are located right on Market Street, even though they're inside the Westfield Shopping Mall. You see them as you're coming down Market. You got American Eagle, and you got Adidas, and you got several others. Here's another entrance to the Powell BART station. They usually run 2 blocks for every BART station within the city. They usually run 2 blocks apart. And this one's at 5th and Market Street. And again, it's currently closed, but across the street there's an entrance. There's another one that is open. Here's one of many local newspaper stands. You've got San Francisco Chronicle, the Examiner, the Mercury News, some Bay Area newspapers as well. Now it's going to be located pretty much at Powell and Market, which is right across the street. I'll show you that in a minute. But essentially it's right in front of the Westfield Shop. Westfield Shopping Center has 2 main door entrances. I'll show you the second one in a minute. 871 Market Street. Now, Powell Street at Market. Powell again runs north of Market. This is the location of our world famous cable car line, and that is the Powell Street cable car line and the Hyde Street cable car line. Now they're going to run from here at Powell and Market going up to Fisherman's Wharf. I mentioned earlier in phase 1 that the California cable car line, it runs east-west from California and Market going up to Van Ness Street, and then turns around on Van Ness Street, comes back to California and Market. Now the Powell cable car line, called the Powell Hyde Street cable car line because one of the cable car lines that runs that begins here, it'll end at the Hyde Street in Fisherman's Wharf, and the other one will end at Bay Street actually. But nevertheless, I'll show you where you would board the cable car line. So this is where one of our world famous cable car lines would begin at. It turns around. It's coming back from Fisherman's Wharf, for example. It'll turn around right here and then begin to disembark towards Fisherman's Wharf. And I'll show you more. If you follow one of my previous film shoots, I had actually shot the cable car line from literally Powell and Market going up to the wharf. I'll put a link in the description for you. But nevertheless, here's where it's at, right on the corner, Powell and Market. Let me show you a few more shots of the cable car stop. So again, it's going to be turning around right here, and then it's going to be going pretty much northbound, like we could call it, all the way up past Nob Hill, all the way down Nob Hill to Fisherman's Wharf. So some more safety tips as you would wait in line for the cable car, such as board safely, only board when car has come to a complete stop. Then you would hang on closely if you're hanging along the side of the cable car. Watch for oncoming traffic, stand or sit in designated areas, and of course no food and drinks on the cable car. And keep your hands off the cords. Unfortunately, the cable car is not currently running right now due to COVID-19, but hopefully it will get back going shortly. Now here's the AT&T store. That those of you that have AT&T service, this is where you can go to either pay your bills or access some of their products and services, and it really is just right adjacent to the Powell cable car line, Powell Market cable car line. Now here's the other entrance to the Powell Market cable car stop, and as I mentioned earlier, the one across the street is currently closed, but this one, as you can see, is open. It's got a stepwell and escalator leading down to the entrance to where you board the BART station. Okay, here's the Powell Street BART station, the other side of the entrance to where I mentioned earlier. One side of the street, across the street, is where the Westfield Shopping Mall section, that part is closed, but this side is open. It's got a stepwell and an escalator leading you down to the entrance to where you would board the train. Now here's a ticket booth where you can buy tickets for not only the cable car line, but also all the public transit within the city of San Francisco. There's also a Clipper card that's a universal card that you can use for many public transits throughout the entire Bay Area that you can also purchase here. Essentially, you just put money on the card and then you use that card up to the limit of much amount of money you put into it. For virtually every type of public transit, it would be ferry service, boats, the light rail, all throughout the San Francisco Bay Area. But this ticket booth is just really right adjacent to where the Powell Market cable car line is, as well as the entrance to the Powell BART station. Okay, so right across the street from where the Powell BART station and the Powell Market cable car line is the second, or actually the third entrance to the Westfield Shopping Center, but it's essentially the second main door entrance to the Westfield Shopping Center. I showed you the other one earlier. Again, that's probably at 871 Market Street, just a few feet from the other main part door entrance, which is at 865 Market Street. Now, here's one of several restrooms that are actually located on Market Street. This will be located right across the street from the second main entrance of the Westfield Shopping Center, but just outside the Powell BART station at Powell and Market. Currently, it's out of order. Now, here's one of several Muni public transit stop, that is the city local transit stops, where let's say a percentage of the buses and let's say light rail will stop, which is located in the middle of the street. Not every bus stops at every stop, but let's say half of them stop at bus stops like this one that are literally right in the middle of the street, and then the other portion of the buses stop near the sidewalk. So you want to be certain that whatever bus you're taking, that you're at the correct stop. Now, one of the things that you can do to determine whether or not you're at the correct bus stop is to look at the signage at the bus stop, which will indicate the buses that will stop there. Now, this one, as I showed earlier, this stop that's in the middle of the street, it indicates that you've got the 6 Parnassus, the 7 Haight, the 9 San Bruno, the number 7, the N and the L line. You can't see some of them because they're kind of marked. I'll show you a few others as we move down Market Street where they're more clear to read. But this is what you want to look for when you're trying to determine where is your stop to take the appropriate bus or train or light rail. Here's the location of another waste disposal that's at the corner of 5th and Market Street. The 5th Street going south of Market, and then north of Market is going to be Cyril Magnin. I'll show you in a minute. Now, first of all, I mentioned earlier the significance of paying attention to the signage if you're driving on Market Street. Here's a sign indicating no left turns on 5th Street. And 5th Street is going to be south of Market. I'll show you that in a minute. But also, Market crosses Cyril Magnin. North of Market is going to be Cyril Magnin. Now, this is 5th at Market Street. 5th is going to be going south of Market. Now, we're going to break off Market briefly because I'm going to show you just off of 5th Street and Alleyway Street where you can find more hidden gems, more hidden restaurants. Again, if you want to know where is a restaurant I can go to where the locals dine, well, I'm going to show you here in a minute. But also I want to show you the significance of the alleyways and how you'll find even more businesses and establishments and attractions in these alleyways. Now, here are 2 USPS postal mail drop boxes, so if you need to mail out souvenirs or any other important documents or information, this is one of the stops one of the mailbox boxes you can use. It's on the corner of 5th and Market. Now, Nordstrom Rack, located at the corner of 901 Market Street, right at the corner of 5th and Market, is like a discount store of Nordstrom, where they sell their high name brand items at a lower price. Usually it's a named brand that's no longer selling at the main store, and then they offer it at a discounted rate at the Nordstrom Rack store. Again, I don't know all the reasons why they discount the product, but I do know that all the items that are sold here are brand name items at a discounted rate. Now, as we come down Market Street, as we come down 5th Street off of Market, going southbound on 5th, you'll see here also that it has a bike lane. Not all the streets in the city have bike lanes, but 5th and Market has that. Here's yet another door entrance to the Westfield Shopping Mall. This is the third main door entrance. I said 3 of them on Market Street. This one's on 5th Street, right around the corner, literally. And there's going to be another one on Mission Street. I showcased that one on my Financial District film shoot. But nevertheless, this one's going to be at, let's say, 25th Street. It's literally right around the corner from the one on Market Street. The 3 of them on Market Street. Now here's the main garage entrance for the Westfield Shopping Center. It's going to be at literally 55 5th Street, just a few feet from where the entrance is on the Westfield Shopping Center, which is the one I mentioned earlier on 5th Street. And also, by the way, I gave you an incorrect address for for the door entrance to the Westfield Shopping Center on 5th Street. It's at 51 5th Street. But nevertheless, the key component of finding this garage door entrance is that it's going to be on the right-hand side of 5th Street as you're coming northbound to Market Street, or if you're going southbound on 5th Street, you'd have to literally make a left turn into the garage. So the garage is going to be at 55 5th Street. Correction, this is the loading dock entrance to the Westfield Shopping Mall. It's not a parking garage. So loading dock for truck deliveries. Now, just off of 5th Street is a street called Jesse. We call it also the Mint Plaza, which is the entrance to on Jesse Street is where you find the Mint Plaza. But this is an alleyway, like many of them throughout the city, where you're going to find these unique shops and restaurants. And so I'm going to show you the significance of coming off of the main streets and finding and also visiting the merchants that are on these alleyway streets. The entrance to Mint Plaza, which is also Jesse Street. Now, Sushi Hashari has a 4.5 star rating, and they're located at 4 Mint Plaza. They also primarily feature Japanese cuisine. And furthermore, Sushi Hashari features an outdoor patio that's tinted and has outdoor heaters. Now, 54 Ristorante Italiano is an Italian restaurant that features Roman dishes and also Italian wines, and they're located at 54 Mint Street. Furthermore, 54 Mint Ristorante features an outdoor dining seating area with outdoor heaters. Now, as I said earlier, that for the Mint Plaza is going to turn into Jesse Street. So, beginning at 400 Jesse Street, I'm going to show you the alleyway of Jesse Street and what merchants, attractions, dining options are available to you. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that this alleyway of Jesse Street is one way going eastbound, so you wouldn't be able to turn right into it off of 5th Street. You'd have to come down 6th Street. And depending on what directions you're coming on 6th Street, either north or south, you'd have to turn into Jessie Street off of 6th Street and not off of 5th. So here's one of the entrances of the Hampton Inn boutique lodging option for you that's on 444 Jessie Street. Okay, here's one of the locals in town that likes to cycle on Market Street. So you get a really good idea of what you can do on Market Street. You can ride your bike, you can use a scooter, you can drive on the street as you choose to either visit the shops or restaurants or just for something to do. You know, just strolling down Market Street, you have several options. So here's one of the locals that's kind enough to allow this photo or video to be shown so you can indicate what you can actually do on Market Street. Thanks.
Thank you.
Now we've returned back to Market Street and we're at the corner now at 943 Market at Mason Street, and we're going to continue going westbound on Market. Again, the reason why I chose to get off of Market Street and onto 5th Street is I wanted to show you the alleyways that are within the city that provide tremendous value in terms of either shopping or dining options that are kind of hidden. And the things that if you want to learn more about where the locals go, where they dine, what they do, then you definitely want to get into some of these alleyways. The alleyway I showed you there off of 5th Street on Jessie Street was between 5th and 6th Street. So I just came back up 6th Street and now we're back on Market Street and we're going to continue going westbound on Market Street. Now, Crazy Horse Gentlemen's Club is for adult entertainment. They have, especially it's a strip nightclub where they showcase the sexiest new lady dancers. Now they're located at 980 Market Street. The Golden Gate Theater is the Best of Broadway theater where you get lots of the shows that are coming out of New York will also be featured at this theater. Now it's located at 1 Taylor Street, which is right on the corner of Market, and then it's the cross street of Market, just like Golden Gate Avenue is also right across the street from the theater, and it's also the cross street of Market. So essentially at this point, north of Market, the two cross streets are going to be Golden Gate and Taylor Street. And this is where the Golden Gate Theater is at, 1 Taylor Street. Here's an up-close look at the Golden Gate Theater. Now we're approaching the 1000 block of Market Street going westbound. The International Art Museum of America focuses in on showcasing the top artists throughout the country. Now they're located at 1025 Market Street, but they also have another entrance at 1023 Market Street. Now here's one of several bike rental stands where you could literally rent one of these bikes and then cycle down Market Street. Now this is going to be located at the corner of Market and Jones Street at 1063 Market Street. 1063 Market. Now Ravi Eatery is a Northern Indian cuisine, and they're located at 1063 Market Street and have received 3.5 and 4-star ratings online. Now we're approaching the 1100 block of Market Street going westbound. Now the cross street north of Market at the 1100 block is going to be Charles J. Brenham Street, and the cross street south of Market is going to be 7th Street. Now as we approach the cross streets of Brennan and 7th Street, I want to show you the significance of this particular part of Market Street, which is the Civic Center District area. And this is the area where a lot of the parades that, as I mentioned in phase 1, they come down Market Street going westbound, and then they turn. What's that?
They're doing a good job cleaning up this city.
All right, appreciate it. Yeah, as I was saying, Market Street is the main hub for all these parades and festivals we have. And then as they're coming down Market Street going westbound, they're going to turn off Market Street and head towards Civic Center. Civic Center is where City Hall is. And I'll show you the street that they turn off of Market Street on in a minute as they head towards Civic Center Plaza. Here's a few directional signs that makes it easier to find some of the attractions around this area. The UN Plaza, the Asian Art Museum, and the Civic Center Plaza I mentioned earlier. Now here's the entrance to the Civic Center BART station. And as I mentioned earlier in the previous BART station entrances, there are about four of them that's on Market Street here. And this is the fourth one on Market Street. And again, this entrance is going to be at the corner of 7th and Market. Continuing westbound on Market Street. Now these murals represent the farmers market that's located within the Civic Center Plaza. They're on certain days of the week. So those of you into fresh produce, you want to come here, and if you look at the signage, you'll see that they're on Wednesdays from 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. But usually they have the more frequent of that. I'll try to see if I can get a schedule showing some of them. Sundays from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. is another date. But nevertheless, if you're into fresh produce and like the Ferry Building, which I showed you on my Ferry Building shoot, the Ferry Building at Market and the Embarcadero is where they have the other farmers market. But this is another big location point where the farmers market is at within the city. This plaza, here's the Civic Center Plaza where the farmers market is actually held. This is where the farmers set up their shops and vendors, and this is where they serve their fresh produce, right in this area. The picture I showed you earlier, that was just a mural showing you the farmers. The plaza is located at 1145 Market Street. Now here's the elevator for the Civic Center BART station, located at 1145 Market Street. Well, I just learned there's a new Whole Foods market that's going to be opening up here on 1145 Market Street. Looks like it's going to be either inside the Trinity apartment complexes or adjacent to it. So here's more of the new Trinity apartment luxury complexes. I guess that's a photo of what the building will look like, and it's going to be opening up in 2021 along with Whole Foods. Exactly, I don't know when the Trinity apartment is going to be open, but for certain the Whole Foods, it says here, is going to be open in 2021. So now we can at 8th and Market Street, which is really the 1200 block of Market Street. You can get a really good look at where we came from when we started at Stewart and Market, right next to the Embarcadero. As I mentioned earlier about the parades and festivals, they start down there at Stewart Street, pretty much, or at Beale Street, just anywhere near where the market is near the Embarcadero, and then they're coming up westbound to where we're at right here. Either the parade ends here or it just turns right into the Civic Center Plaza. But either way, the majority of the parades are coming down this Market Street and are ending right around on this area right here. It's hard to say depending on the parade, the organizers, where they actually end their parade, but this is where they usually end, right around 8th and Market, or maybe they end at 7th and Market, but right around this general area. And then the fans are on the outside of the street, on the sidewalks on both sides of Market. So as I mentioned earlier, now we're at the 1200 block of Market Street going westbound. And the cross streets north of Market are going to be Hyde and Grove. The cross streets south of Market is going to be 8th Street. Now, Grove Street is, I believe, one of the streets that the parade is going to turn right on as they head towards Civic Center Plaza. So let me show you Grove Street leading up to the Civic Center Plaza. Grove Street, heading towards Civic Center Plaza. So now we're at the Civic Center Plaza. This is the Civic Center playground. So there's a few amenities within the plaza, but the Civic Center is also home to City Hall. You see that glass dome area in the back. This is where people get married, get their business licenses, and a few other services that the city provides. Now this particular playground is really much going to be really right across the street from the San Francisco Library, and it's going to be between Fulton and Grove, which we came up on. So this playground is going to be on Larkin Street between Grove and Fulton. So we just came up Grove off of Market as we approach the Civic Center Plaza or City Hall. So another look at the plaza, the children's playground that is, which is within the Civic Center Plaza. Here's another close-up look at the City Hall building, which is within the Civic Center Plaza. The San Francisco Public Library, which is at 100 Larkin Street, right in the heart of the Civic Center Plaza. Now, right here at the corner of 1200 block of Market Street and 8th Street is the Orpheum Theater. Now, the Orpheum Theater, like the Golden Gate Theater, is the Best of Broadway performance center where they're showcasing lots of Best of Broadway movies, that some of which come from New York directly. So they feature them here, they feature them at the Golden Gate Theater, at 6th and Market, and also the Current Theater on Gary Street. That's the third one, where it's a part of the Best of Broadway performance shows. Currently it's closed like all the other performance theaters because of COVID-19. And let me get you their official street address, one moment. Yes, the Orpheum Theater is located at 1192 Market Street, right at the corner of, again, Market and 8th Street. Now, just outside the Orpheum Theater, at the corner of Market and 8th Street, is the second entrance to the Civic Center BART station. Now, the Hotel Whitcomb is located at 1231 Market Street, and they offer free Wi-Fi, breakfast, and has a bar lounge. So here's a nice directional sign indicating where the Civic Center parking garage is, as well as the Performing Arts Theater. Now Mo's Greens. Now Mo Greens is a cannabis dispensary that has a smoke room, dab bar, and lounge. Now they're located at 1276 Market Street. So again, in looking for that public parking garage off of Market Street, you would turn right on Larkin Street, and then you're going to make a left turn here on Grove Street, and hopefully we will find the parking garage. So I stand corrected. When you make in terms of finding the parking garage, the Civic Center parking garage, when you make that right turn on Larkin Street off of Market, instead of making a left turn on Grove, you just keep coming up one more block, and just before you get to McAllister Street, look to your left, and this is where you'll find the entrance to the Civic Center parking garage, which is just like a block away from the City Hall, and right across the street from the Asian Art Museum. I'll show you in a minute. Now, the official street address of the Civic Center parking garage is 355 McAllister Street. But as I indicated before, you'd want to be entering the garage off of Larkin Street. So I would, in GPS, I would use 199 or 197 Larkin Street to enter the garage. The garage also has a 7-foot 0-inch clearance height, so you want to make certain that your vehicle is below 7 foot. Now the Asian Art Museum located at 200 Larkin Street is, as I said earlier, right across the street from the Civic Center parking garage and just a few feet from the City Hall within the Civic Center area. And they feature a huge collection of Asian art from all throughout the world. So I stand corrected. The Civic Center parking garage, they do have a second garage, which is the main address you'll see online at 355 McAllister Street. So essentially they have two entrances and exits of their garages. The one earlier I mentioned on Larkin at probably 197. You can go, or you can enter 199 Larkin Street for GPS. And then they have the one here that you'll probably see online at 355 McAllister Street. So if you follow me on my previous film shoots on the parking entrances and the entrances and exits of many businesses, a lot of times they have more than one door entrance. They have more than one garage entrance. So these are the things that you need to know when you decide to visit an establishment. You always want to ask the target establishment, do you have more than one parking garage entrance? Do you have more than one door entrance? And then whatever entrance that they indicate to you that they provide, that's best in terms of how to find their location, that's the one address you use for your GPS. So after you park your garage, and this would be one of the elevators that you would take, actually there's two of them in there that you can take coming back up to the main street level, which is again is a Civic Center, which is pretty much just a few feet from the City Hall and right across the street from the Asian Art Museum. Now here's an up close look at the City Hall, I'm sorry. Now here's an up close look at the City Hall. Now here's a real up close look at City Hall. They're located at 1 Carlton B. Goodlett Place, that essentially is between Grove and McAllister Street. Now what's special about City Hall is, as I mentioned earlier, they have weddings here, they issue business licenses, and also they run Dulcin tours Monday through Friday at 10 a.m., noon, and at 2 p.m. Another shot of the top of the City Hall, the glass dome. So now as we continue along Market Street at the 1300 block, I used the points of interest of the parking garage and the Asian Art Museum and City Hall to indicate some of the main attractions and also points of interest that you will find off of the main focus, which is Market Street. And I'll be doing this all throughout the city. Whenever I focus in on a specific street, there's also going to be other points of interest or attractions that you might find of interest that are not on the main strip. And so this is why I bring this out. And also, furthermore, if you are driving in the area, then you want to know where the parking garage is. So that's why I pointed that out as well. So it's important that you know about all these points of interest as you are visiting specific areas within the neighborhoods of San Francisco. So with that being the case, let's continue our journey on Market Street going westbound. Now, as we proceed westbound on Market Street, again, you want to be aware of no left turns as well as one-way streets. This is extremely important if you're driving. You absolutely do not want to be driving down a one-way street. And I said earlier, the best way to prevent that from happening is to always pay attention to the signage as you cross each street within the city. Now, here's one thing that's really nice about some of the sidewalks or the streets within the city, is that is the bike lane that's provided among many streets, throughout the city, and Market Street is no exception. And it's also, this particular bike lane is quite large, unlike other types of bike lanes as well. And it's also color-coded, making it even easier to find. So those of you into cycling, or if you decide to rent out one of the bikes that are located on the sidewalks here, you'd have that extra luxury of having your own bike lane, especially on a crowded traffic street like Market Street is. Well, here's the world famous Tweeter headquarters office, located at 1355 Market Street. So now we're going to conclude our film shoot on Market Street at 1400 and Market. And I hope you enjoy the hidden treasures of the alleyways just off of Market Street, the significant points of entrance like the museum and the parking garage. Hope you enjoy the options for lodging as well as dining on Market Street. I hope you also enjoyed the scenic views of the Market Street and learned more about how Market Street is aligned and how it's numbered so that you can easily find the establishments that you are looking for. I hope you enjoyed all the unique points of interest as well within Market Street. And if you did, I appreciate if you would subscribe to my newsletter, my channel, and share, comment, and like the channel as well with your family, colleagues, friends. And don't forget to log into my website where you can view my blog, where I'll have more of the details about these points of interest. The website is PairRec.com, PAIRREC. And also, while you're at the website, you can subscribe to the newsletter where I'll be emphasizing merchant reopenings, as well as discounts and promotions on wine tasting, on lodging, on dining, maybe parking. And also, I'm going to put links in the description for all the different points of interest that I've emphasized within the city. The first phase of Market Street, the financial district, the Embarcadero, as well as the other points of interest that you can check out, such as Napa Valley, Sonoma, the Highway 1 Scenic Drive from San Francisco all the way down to Monterey, and much more. That being the case, we're going to conclude and we're going to recontinue this journey, spectacular journey of Market Street going westbound at the 10th Street, cross street of Market for phase 3. That's all for now, and have a nice day.